Guys, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with the 19 books that I loved reading in 2019. Not all of them were 2019 releases. There were a lot of backlist books in there, but I read these in 2019 and I loved them the most, so I'm here to share them with you. So before we get on with this video, I just like to say that I make book related videos and sometimes, very rarely, some travel content too. So if you'd like to show me some love and encouragement, because that means the world to me, please don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon so that you can stay updated with my videos. So without further ado, let's get into this video and let me share with you the 19 books that I loved reading in 2019. The first book on this list is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is a beautifully written story about the night circus which comes and goes without anybody knowing it, and it opens at nightfall and closes at dawn, and all the people who work in the night circus are unique and they work in different sections of the circus, and there are friendships and there are relationships that are so complex that from the outside it might look like it might not be worth it, but then when you read this book and find out everything from the inside, it is such a lovely story, which is why I fell in love with it. This is a slow burn kind of story, but all the detailing in this entire length, I think this is about 500 pages long. It is about 600 pages long, and there are so many details, such intricacy in this that I felt like it was one of the most amazing books I've read in a long time. The next book on this list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This was my introduction to Angie Thomas, as was the world's, but I fell in love with her writing with this book because it's so raw, so honest. This is the story of Star, who witnesses her friend being killed by a police officer and how her world changes after this, because being black and being targeted in the United States of America has been going on for a while now, and to see it happen to someone so close to her was something of a shock to Star. And now how she deals with it and how her community gets affected by what she says to the media, to anywhere that she goes, forms the entire story. And this, like I mentioned, is one of the most beautiful books I've read of all time. It is YA, it's young adult, but why should it mean that YA is not beautiful? YAs are some of the most effective and hard-hitting books I can ever read, and this is one of them, and me from over here could feel the pain of those characters. So it shows how effective Angie Thomas's writing is. And basically, in a nutshell, I now love Angie Thomas. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. The next book on this list is Karno's Daughter by Rimli Sengupta. This is the story of Buttermilk, who is a maid who works in the city for a lady, and the lady is narrating the story of Buttermilk, who is working in the city with a life in a village. And when the lady goes to the village and sees all the problems that they have to go through, including everything that they have to take care of, lands, the rents, and all the infighting that happens even within family and within the village community as a whole. And it is one of the most poignantly written stories I've read in a long time. It's raw, it's honest, and we living our convenience lives in the city, we will probably never understand how these people try to make ends meet and how they have to do so much more just to survive. And that's why I loved Karno's Daughter so much, and I feel like more people should read it. The next book on this list is When I Hit You, or A Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife by Meena Kandasamy. The narrator in this story tells us about the physical and emotional abuse that she had to go through from her husband, and it's one of the most horrifying, heartbreaking stories I've read in a long time. And she narrates everything from seemingly innocent jibes to very obvious taunts and beatings, and reading this broke my heart because of how devastating this prose is. It is beautiful but matter of fact, and it will bring the world crashing down upon you. This is a complete eye-opener in terms of domestic abuse, and to tell the world that domestic abuse is not only physical abuse. Domestic abuse constitutes physical and emotional abuse, and that can beat the out of you. The next book on this list is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is inspirational. This is Michelle Obama's story from when she was a child to the time she became First Lady, and her experiences all through. She was a law student. She did a lot of work for American society, and to read her story in her own words is absolutely inspirational. Not to say that she's a serious kind of lady. She is fun loving. If you see the number of times she's gone on talk shows and had fun like anybody else, it's so awe-inspiring and it's so heartwarming to see that reaching that level and yet being so rooted and so grounded. It's wonderful to see, and that is why I loved this book. The next book on this list is another book by Angie Thomas, and this came out in 2019, and the book I'm talking about is On the Come Up. This is the story of Bree, who wants to become a rapper, but then her mom loses her job and she is always being labeled as being somewhat of a trouble in school, and her father is no more, who was also a rapper, so that's who she's modeling herself on. But then also she wants to become her own person, and she needs to become success because they are this close from becoming homeless. And now Bree has to make a few decisions between such important points that she doesn't know if she will be able to make it, but then she knows she has to make it. And at the end of it all, On the Come Up is an enjoyable read while taking care of topics such as homelessness and dreams and ambitions. And this book, a YA novel, delving into such topics and bringing out the simplicity and the complexity of all these situations, is something that I absolutely love. The next book on this list is The Binding by Bridget Collins, and this is a book that is not only beautiful on the outside but it's also beautiful on the inside. The Binding is the story of Emmett Farmer, who is working on his parents' field, and one day he receives a letter that invites him to become an apprentice at a bookbinder's shop. A bookbinder is one who takes all your memories, all your secrets, and binds it into books so that it allows you to forget everything that has happened in your past, everything that you want to keep hidden, everything that you want to forget. And during Emmett's apprenticeship, he finds a book with his name on it, and now he is very curious. But will his curiosity actually bring him joy, or will it bring him sorrow, or will it bring him rage? Forms the entire story, and this is so beautiful. It feels like I will be giving away the entire story if I start talking about it, because the entire plot twist is something that you need to read to understand. And this is a book that took me by the head and, you know, did that thing that Hulk does to Loki, smashed me around. So all I'll say is that this book is one that everyone should read, and I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is a standalone fantasy novel called The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and this book is huge, and it took me quite a while to get through this, but it was completely worth it. This is the story of the house of Berethnet, who has been ruling Innis for quite a long time, thousands of years now. And Queen Sabran Berethnet, she now has to produce an heir, female child, to take the line forward and to protect the realm from absolute destruction. It feels like that is not going to happen because there are assassins, and then there are old enemies rising from the depths of the earth, and then there is Eid Durian, who has been sent by the priory to protect the queen. She is at Sabran's court as a lady in waiting, and then there's Tane, who is now testing to become a dragon rider. But when these three lines come together to form an epic battle of swords, I went mad. I loved the battle. I loved everything that this book had to offer because of the amazing detailing that the author does. She has so much to offer, and that is one of the things that made The Priory of the Orange Tree so amazing to read. I feel like this book is a slow burn too, and that you need to have quite a bit of a patience to read it because it's more than 800 pages long, but it's completely worth it, and I would highly recommend you read this book. The next book on this list is Giant Spread by Agatha Christie, writing as Mary Westmacott. I love Agatha Christie's crime fiction. She's one of my favorite authors of all time, but her non-crime works are also amazing. They are hard-hitting, and this is one such book. I was very surprised that I loved this book the way I did. Agatha Christie has done a great job of showing human flaws and their resilience and their frailties and everything is there in here. The story is written very poignantly, and the characters in here are so human, so realistic, that it's absolutely terrifying after a while to read it. And this is one book that is so psychologically draining that I just wanted to put it aside and stare off into the distance for a while. I have a full video review of this book up on my channel if you'd like to check that out. I'll leave the link here as well as in the description box below. The next book on this list is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a story of Vivian Morris. She's a 19-year-old who has been sent to New York to live with her aunt by her parents, and her aunt owns a playhouse, a theater, and Vivian is a whiz with needles and sewing. So what she does is she joins her aunt's theater project and she becomes the self-appointed seamstress at the theater. And what happens to Vivian when she becomes heady with everything that life has to offer forms the rest of the story. Elizabeth Gilbert, I am a fan of her since Eat, Pray, Love. But this one is something else because this transports you to 1940 and it sits you down over there, gives you a drink and asks you to just watch as events unfold. And when the hard parts of the story start coming out, you're like, oh my god, why am I here? Why is Vivian here? Can I take her to the future? Can I take her to where I am from? And that is this kind of storytelling that Elizabeth Gilbert is an expert at, and I absolutely love this book. I have a full video review of this book up on my channel, so if you'd like to check that out, I'll leave the links here as well as in the description box below. The next book on this list is one by my new favorite author, Nikita Gill, and that is Fierce Fairy Tales. And this is a collection of little tales that are retellings of the fairy tales that we know as children, that we hear of as children, and it is one of the most empowering books I've read in a long time, and I am such a huge fan of this book. The illustrations are amazing, the language use is beautiful, and empowerment. There is so much of empowerment in here, but it talks about the female characters in fairy tales, and the way she does it, I am absolutely blown away. I have gushed about this book in a separate video, so if you'd like to check that video out, I'll leave it here. I'll leave the link here as well as in the description box below. The next book on this list is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Adichie is one of my favorite authors. I've read only 2 of her non-fiction before, and this is my 3rd of her books and my first of her fiction books. This is the story of Ifemelu and Obinze, who are Nigerians and in love, and their country is under military rule. But when Ifemelu goes to America and she has to deal with her own identity crisis, she feels like cutting off Obinze is a better idea than actually, talking to him and explain things to him, because she doesn't know if she will be able to explain what is going on within her. So when years later Ifemelu emails Obinze to tell him that she is coming back, she throws a spanner in the works and everything goes topsy-turvy. What happens when these two lovebirds have to, come to terms with the fact that neither of them has forgotten the other, forms the entire story. There are so many issues that have been covered in this book, but it has a strong narrative about how Nigerians feel when they go abroad and when they grapple with identity issues and race issues, and how the West sees Africa. They cannot even differentiate between people of Nigeria and people of other African countries, and that is such a hard-hitting narrative. The next book on this list is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is the story of Imani Santiago, who is a teenage mom. She loves being a mom to her daughter Emma, whom she lovingly calls baby girl, and she is so much more than that. She loves cooking, she goes to school like everyone else, and she wants to make something of herself. So when her school offers a program that allows her to use her love for cooking and make something of it, it sort of boosts her morale and she joins the class. And from there it's all about how Imani uses her talent to become something that she's always wanted to be. Will she achieve her dream? Will her family accept her dream? Will her family be taken care of? Forms the rest of the story. And as you know, I discovered Elizabeth Acevedo in 2018 when I read The Poet X, and I absolutely fell in love with her book. And this is one such book because of how beautifully the author has woven the story, and she has put teenage experiences and adult responsibilities and the crossroads between these two in such a wonderful manner, because watching Imani be responsible and yet not missing out on her teenage experiences is something that that warmed my heart. My next favorite from 2019 is You Will Be Safe Here by Damien Barr. This is set in two timelines. One is in 1901 in the Boer War and the other is in 2010. While in the Boer War, it talks about how a lady and her children are sent to a concentration camp. The 2010 narrative follows a boy who is sent to a school for special kids where they promise to straighten out boys who are not masculine, and these two are somehow connected. And reading this book is a journey into the past and an experience unto itself because of how it will take your heart, crush it and play ball with it. It is gripping, it delves into the depths of the issues that it talks about in not so many words, and it is moving. It will make you cry rivers, and it is one book that I will highly recommend to anyone and everyone who reads. The next book on this list is by an author who has made an appearance on this list already, and that author is Nikita Gill, and the book is Great Goddesses: Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters. And this is a collection of tales that are retellings of the myths that we know, and like Fierce Fairy Tales, it gives a twist to each of them. It gives a feminist twist to each of them, and talking about all the goddesses who were stamped upon, trampled upon and treated as, you know, servants of men, and to read their thoughts in Nikita Gill's words and to see how they were misinterpreted, misunderstood and everything else. It's a wonderful experience in itself, and I loved this. I could read this for ages. I could keep reading these, and I would say that if you love mythology, then this is one book that you should definitely not miss. The next book on this list is Educated by Tara Westover. This is the story of Tara Westover, the author herself. This is a memoir, and about how she was born into a family who were survivalists, and they used to prepare for the end of the world. They used to stockpile things, and her father was so paranoid that he used to keep ready a lot of, you know, food and pickled stuff and everything in the basement and everywhere he could find. He forbade hospitals. He said anyone who goes against the will of God is a sinner and all such things. And Tara's father is someone who I felt such a simmering anger towards because of how irresponsible he was, and he was of the opinion that women were there to serve men. But Tara begins to educate herself, and in the process she ends up learning so much about how she was not treated the way she should have been treated. On the one hand, it feels like family will be there for you throughout everything, and to see them actively doing things to cut Tara out of their life is sort of it chilled my bones, and I am so offended. I'm so angry on the author's behalf. So I'd suggest, if you're looking for a memoir, if you're looking for a heartbreaking memoir at that, then I would suggest please go ahead and read Educated. It is brilliantly written, and I feel like everyone should absolutely read this one. The next book on this list is The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. This is my foray into Anne Patchett's writing, and I loved it, and I absolutely loved it. This is the story of Daniel and Maeve, whose mother has left and whose father remarries a woman called Andrea, who has two daughters of her own, and they live in the Dutch house. So when Andrea moves into the Dutch house, a lot of changes are coming, and somehow Maeve and Daniel are shunted out of the house. So they make occasional trips to the Dutch house. They don't go inside it, they just sit outside in their car and talk, and they look at it, look at the house and recollect so many things. They are drowned in nostalgia. The Dutch house is beautiful, it's haunting, and it gives a lot of nostalgic feelings throughout the book because of how Maeve and Daniel sit outside the Dutch house, look at it and reminisce. It also talks about people and how nobody is perfect, and it talks about their frailties and how you can, despite those frailties, become someone who the other person, the people in your life, will love and respect no matter what. And that is why I love the Dutch house so much. The next book on this list is Unstoppable by Maria Sharapova. This is Maria Sharapova's memoir, and she talks about how she went from being a kid who was born in Russia to becoming the tennis superstar that she is at the moment. She talks about every stage in her career and how her father saw her potential, and he brought her over to the United States, and he pushed her and pushed her to become the best player that she could be. She talks about the ups and downs in her tennis career. She talks about the people in her life. There are a lot of things like that. And she also talks about how she was banned from the game because of the ITF's short notice about banning a substance that she had been taking for a long time. Like, she took it till the December of 2015, and then in 2016 January they announced that meldonium was now banned, and she had no clue about it. And that is something that I feel so bad about to this day. I feel like the ITF did a lot of Eastern European athletes wrong by doing this, because they thought that if a lot of those people were taking this drug, it must be performance enhancing. So what I'll talk about now is how amazingly well written Unstoppable is, because Maria Sharapova as a tennis player, she is amazing. But now that I've read her memoir, I feel a different level of admiration for this lady. She is humorous, she's witty, and she brings to life everything that she is describing, right from a relationship with her father, with her mom, with her coaches, with everyone in her life. And it is so personal. It gives such an amazing sneak peek into her life that I was stumped. I was stunned by how much I was loving this book. The next and last book on this list is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. This is another non-fiction book that I read in November, and I absolutely loved it. This talks about Henrietta Lacks, a black woman who was diagnosed with cervical cancer in 1951. But when she went to the Johns Hopkins Medical Center to get treated, the doctors over there also took some of her cancer cells, and they passed it over to George Guy, who was the person who was doing this cancer cell research and all, cell culture and everything. So when he began to culture those cells and they began to multiply, he thought it was okay to send it to everyone. And as you know, humans are like this. Once it spreads, you can't stop it from, becoming commercialized. And that is something that annoys me to no end. It makes me so angry, because while Henrietta Lacks' cells were saving lives and getting money for the people who were selling them, her own family was did not even have health insurance. And scientists have to say that we don't have any control over our own tissues, our own cells. And I feel like, because if I took your work and I produced it online, you would come at me, right? So how can I be silent if you take my cells and research and commercialize it and sell it for your own gain? You cannot come at me by saying that this is for medical research. Even if you are not much into science, please read this book. You'll gain a lot bigger perspective about what goes on in the field of science. I read it and I'm like, what the hell? If this is going on in medical research, I don't want to be human. I have a full review of this book on my blog, so if you'd like to check that out, then I leave the link in the description box below. So those were the 19 books that I read in 2019. I know that if I keep doing this, like 20 books that I enjoyed in 2020, if we happen to go to 2050, then I won't be able to do 50 books that I enjoyed in 2050. So I think I've got to put a stop somewhere, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think, is that the saying, or am I being stupid? So which books did you read and love in 2019? Which ones of these books have you read? Which ones did you not like? Which ones do you want to read? Which ones are you reading in January 2020? Which ones are you reading in 2020 as a whole? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to buy any of these books, then please do so by using my Amazon affiliate links. I'll leave the links in the description box below. The price remains the same for you, but I get a small commission off of every purchase that you make, so please help a creator out. If you like this video, please like it and share to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.